Hello, my name is Shailendra Chaudhary, and in this video I'll show how to deploy web application on Azure Kubernetes cluster using Azure DevOps pipeline. So let's start. In the previous two videos, I have already deployed Kubernetes cluster, container registry, and set up the integration between them. So if we'll go to the Azure portal now, as you can see on your screen, AKS demo cluster was deployed in that previous video, whose link you can find in the description of this video. So two nodes are created and those two nodes are added as a scale set in the load balancer. If we'll go to the load balancers, there is one load balancer for the Kubernetes. If we'll go into the backend pool, you can see both the two nodes are added there. Now the another resource is container registry. If we go to the container registry, there is one container registry which is created. And if we'll go to the IAM access control, in the role assignments, the SPN which was used to create Kubernetes cluster has assigned the ACR pull and push role for the container registry, which means now AKS cluster and container registry both are integrated with each other. So now using the Azure DevOps pipeline, I'll deploy a sample web application into this cluster. Before this, I would like to show the GitHub repo which I've created for this. So the name of the repo is AKS app, and I'll make this repo public and provide the information in the description. So I've created an index.html file. This is the HTML file with the JavaScript code, and I picked it from the Google itself. So it's a single page HTML file which I'm going to deploy. There is a Docker file which is created. It's a very simple Docker file. It's pulling the nginx image and copying the index.html file to a particular HTML location from where the web page can be deployed. So using these two files, Docker file and the index.html, image can be created. Now for deploying the containers or the pods into the cluster, we need the YAML files. So this is the YAML file which I have created. It contains both the deployment section as well as the service part. So the kind is deployment here. So it's creating a web app nginx deployment with the replica of 1, which means only one pod will be created, and the details of the container are mentioned here. Webapp nginx is the name of the container, and it will use the container port of 80. The container will pull the image from the container registry with the name Webapp. And for the service, there will be port mapping from 80 to 80, which is on the load balancer and on the pod side. And a load balancer fronted IP will be created to access it from the internet. So let's deploy it using the Azure DevOps pipeline. So I'll be using the same project, YouTube app service, but before creating a pipeline, I have to create the service connection for both Kubernetes cluster as well as container registry. So let's go to the project settings, service connection, and let's create a new connection. For the container registry, let's select Docker registry. Next. So the registry type is Azure Container Registry. It's loading the subscriptions. So this is the only subscription for the lab. So I'll just log in quickly. So let's choose the container registry and name the connection name as same as the container registry. Grant access to all the pipelines and save. This will create a service connection for Azure Container Registry, and after this I'll create the service connection for Kubernetes cluster. Now the service connection for the ACR is created. Let's create connection for the Kubernetes. Next, Azure subscription. It'll ask me to log in again. I'll provide the credentials. I'll select the cluster, which is AKS demo cluster. Namespaces I'll leave as default, and the service connection I'll use the same cluster name. Grant access to the pipelines and save. So now the service connection for both the AKS cluster and the ACR are created. So let's go to the pipelines. And I'll create a folder before creating the pipeline like we did for the ACR. New folder, AKS app. Let's go to AKS app, create a new pipeline, select the GitHub, and AKS app is the repository. So we can either use the starter pipeline and then configure each and every value, but first we have to build an image, then push the image to Docker registry, then upload the artifacts. Afterwards, we'll pull the image from container registry by creating the secrets, and finally the deployment in the cluster. Instead of that, we can choose the deploy to Azure Kubernetes service and it will configure all the steps by itself, like build and push image to the ACR and deploy to Kubernetes cluster. Let's select this. This is my subscription. Let's log in again. I'll select the cluster. It's in existing namespace, which is default. Container registry is demo AKS ACR. And image name is Webapp, which I would like to give, because we have defined the image name as Webapp into our manifest files. And the service port is 80. Validate and confirm. It's generating the YAML file for us now. It took around half a minute to generate the YAML file. First of all, I'll make this trigger as none because I don't want to trigger this pipeline whenever I make a change in the GitHub repo. So service connection for the Docker registry, container registry, image pull secret, because the secret is not there, it will be created. So these are the variables which are defined. And if we'll go to the build stage, it's build and push. It's going to the image repository, Docker file. It's giving the location of the Docker file and then tagging the image and upload it to container registry. In this step, it will create and upload the manifest files. And in the deploy stage, the first step is to create an image pull secret. The secret will be created based on the name which we have provided. And the pipeline service principal has access to create the secret. So it will be done automatically. And then finally, from the manifest file which will be created in the step, the deployment and the service will be created. So let's save and run. It's creating the pipeline and should trigger soon. It's waiting for the agent to start and soon the build process will start. And timing, I'll quickly show. If we'll go to the container registry, there are no repositories right now because we haven't uploaded any image till now. Looks like Azure DevOps pipeline is impacted by a live incident, as you can see here. And this is the reason the build step is not triggered yet. Let's check the status. Capacity for the Ubuntu image is limited in some regions. Okay, I'm in Australia and it's degraded there. I'll pause the video and will resume once the build step has started. This looks like a major issue and the pipeline has not been running for long. So let's change the agent from Azure hosted to self-hosted. Let me first cancel this. Edit the pipeline. Let me show you the self-hosted agent which I have. If I'll go to the settings, agent pool, there is a node pool which is there and I have created an agent. This is done in the previous video. You can find that video in the description. Instead of using the Azure hosted agent, we'll use the node pool. Let's go to the pool section and provide node pool instead of the image. Same in the deployment section also. And let's save it and run. Let's run it now. So now it's using the node pool, as you can see here. And the agent is ready. That's good. Now the Docker command is running and it's building the image. Build and publish of an image is done, and it has published the artifacts also. So if we'll go to the container registries, repository, you can see the Webapp repository here, and there is an app with a tag Webapp 270. Now let's go to Github Repo, and you can see the manifest folder here. And there are two files, deployment and the service, which will be used for deploying into the Azure Kubernetes cluster. So let's go to the pipeline again, go back. We'll permit this pipeline because we are running this for the first time. This is the reason it's asking for the permission. Again, it's taken the agent as node 001. It's downloading the artifacts. So as you can see, the secret wasn't there, was not found. So it has created a secret, and now it's deploying to Kubernetes. First it's creating a service, then it created the deployment, which will create the pods. So let's go to Kubernetes. We'll go to the pods and select the default namespace. You can see there is a pod running, which is in the running state. So let's check this using the command line. I'll open the Cloud Shell in a new window. Let's cancel this one, login. So first thing we have to do is get credentials for the Aks cluster. It's the azcli command. So the command is az aks get credentials -- resource group. The resource group name, let's check the name. This is the resource group, and -- name of the cluster, which is AKS demo cluster. So it will create a kubeconfig file, and now we can run the kubectl commands for the cluster. So kubectl get nodes. As you can see, the two nodes are there, both are ready. So let's check kubectl get pods. There is one pod running. As you can see, the manifest file in the deployment, we have given the replica as 1. So one pod is running. If we'll check the service, there is a Webapp load balancer service running, which has an IP of 210. So if we'll go to the load balancer, and go to the front-end IPs, there is a new front-end IP configuration created. So using this IP, now this web application can be accessed from the internet. So let's check, take this IP and put it in the browser. And perfect. As you can see, welcome to sample web app deployed in AKS. This is a sample index.html which I have taken. It will change the color when you will move it here. Looks pretty cool, right? So now we have deployed our first sample web app into the AKS cluster using the Azure DevOps pipeline. And in this case, we even use the self-hosted agent too. So this is all for this video. I hope you liked it. Thank you so much.